So for the 99.7% of you that don't have a fancy track saw, I'm going to show you how to get amazing, clean, ultra smooth cuts with just your run-of-the-mill skill saw and a 16-tooth general purpose blade. I'm going to pretty much walk you through your entire journey when it comes to cutting with one of these circular saws. We'll start off with the rookie phase, where you don't really know what you're doing and the cuts are not great. We'll move into the solid DIY phase, where you've seen a few things, but you're still not really quite sure how to get good cuts with the circular saw. I'll take you to the pro level cuts, where you're going to get pretty good results, and then I'll take you right to the top of the mountain, the greatest of all time cutting method for circular saws, where you're going to be able to get glassy smooth cuts that are going to come in super handy. Say you want to cut down an interior door and you don't want to have any paint touch up, this will work for that. Or you're just breaking down some sheet goods because you want to make some cool things in your garage. Stick around, this is going to be worth your time. So let's make the rookie cut. And as you can see, that is a horrendous cut. With a skill saw, it's always going to cut nice and clean on the bottom. The top side of your cut is always going to be very problematic because the teeth are spinning upwards, destroying the plywood fibers with that upward motion of the blade. We're moving on to the solid DIY cut. You've watched a couple YouTube videos, you've learned a thing or two. You've seen people using painter's tape. Let's give that a go and see if it will improve the cut. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video. I've got a very important safety tip, especially for people just starting off with a circular saw. So let's give this painter's tape a try and see how that works. So you can see this cut is definitely better than the rookie cut, but it's still not great by any metric. Still quite a bit of splinters. Let's head on up to Pro Town. Now the biggest difference when we get to the pro level here is setting the proper blade depth. When you have the blade all the way down, that tooth angle coming out the top of the board is going to almost be 90 degrees straight up, perpendicular, however you want to put it. When you adjust the proper blade depth so that the teeth are just coming out the bottom side of the plywood, that angle where it comes out the top of the plywood is going to be more like 45, 30 degrees, causing far less tear out. So let's give this cut a try and see how that turns out. So you can see now with the pro level cut, it's definitely nicer than the solid DIY. So let's move on to the goat level cut. And I'm going to show you how to get the nicest possible cut out of this 16-tooth blade. We're bringing the painter's tape back out. Now the mistake that a lot of people make with this painter's tape is they don't end up pushing it down hard enough into the wood fibers. You have to get maximum force in there to push this thing down, to hold those fibers steady as you're cutting and they're getting pushed up. The best thing to use is one of these little rubber rollers. If you don't have one of these rubber rollers, this is great for edge tape and anytime you're using any kind of contact cement. Take the roll of tape and just push down as hard as you can to get that tape sealed down. I'm going to give it the once over with this roller. And let's give that a cut and I'll show you what I've been talking about this whole time. That's what I'm talking about. Like that is as nice of a cut as you're ever going to get with a skill saw and a 16-tooth blade. You could definitely use that cut for building cabinets. You can see like, yeah, there's a tiniest little bit of chip out. Nothing too major. You definitely would get better results with a 40-tooth blade. This is what I use for all of my cabinet part cutting. But the 16-tooth is going to easily get the job done if you use that tape rolling on method, proper blade depth. And the number one safety tip that I have for people, especially if you're just starting off with a circular saw, Circular saws can be very dangerous, and the most dangerous part of them is kicking back. Kick back, maybe the blade guard gets caught on something and it can cut your leg, can cut your finger. And if you're just starting off, what I highly recommend is starting off with one of these 18-volt saws as opposed to a corded or even the 36-volt saws that have a lot more power. That power and the kickback is very dangerous. And hey, if you're just starting off with the circular saw, this is going to be a great video for you. It's how to cut freehand and get really accurate cuts that way. It's right over here. What am I supposed to say after that? Hello, government. I don't think this part's funny, but we will try it again. I'm sweating profusely. I've messed it up a few times. Smooth operator. Let's make sure we were recording.